Good morning. Welcome to this session. Last class we were discussing the first law of thermodynamics. We have started the first law of thermodynamics applied to a finite process and to a cyclic process. What was it? That we recognized the algebraic sum of heat interactions between a system and a surrounding in a cyclic process becomes equal to the algebraic sum of the work interactions between a system and its surrounding in a cyclic process, which means that the cyclic integral of heat interactions minus the work interactions between the system and the surrounding is 0. And the immediate consequence of it is that the difference between heat and work interaction executed by a system in a finite process becomes equal to the change in a property, which we defined as internal energy of the system. Now, let us write this. Therefore, if we just recognize, which we discussed earlier, that in a process connecting these two state points 1, 2, the heat added Q1, 2 is its change in internal energy E2 minus E1 plus the work coming out of this system during the process from state 1 to state 2. And our usual sign convention is the heat added to a system is positive, while the work done by the system is positive. If you write it for an infinite small process with differential amount of the quantity, that means if delta Q is the infinite small heat added for an infinite small process executed by a infinite small system, then this can be written in terms of this dE. Here E is a point function, is a change in internal energy, which can be written in terms of its perfect differential. That is why I use the D and delta W. So, this is the first law. So, that if we take the cyclic integral, then we get automatically cyclic integral of del Q is cyclic integral on both the sides dE plus the cyclic integral of delta W. Well, and you know the E is a point function, so that cyclic integral is 0. So, the cyclic integral of delta Q, this is the first law. In fact, we came this way, that we first recognize this and then we define that this minus this is a change in a property, which is the internal energy E2 and E1, E2 minus E1. So, this is the precise form of the first law. Now, if we write this in terms of per unit mass, this will be internal energy per unit mass. But before that, I should tell this way. Now, you concentrate on these two equations. Now, if a closed system, now this first law, first of all you must know this first law, that heat added is change in internal energy plus work done, is applied for both closed system and open system. But the version of this law in open system is little different, which I will tell afterwards. So, when we deal basically with closed system, we write in this form that delta Q is equal to dE plus delta W. So, henceforth whatever we will do, we will be referring to a closed system. So, let us now think of a closed system, then we can write this internal energy we have already recognized for a closed system is composed of intermolecular energy plus kinetic energy plus potential energy. All types of energy stored within this system apart from the intermolecular energy, which is because of the molecular kinetic and potential energy, can be described in terms of macroscopic potential energy, for example, the gravitational potential energy, and kinetic energy because of the movement or motions of the particles of the system, macroscopic particles of the system, not the molecular motions. So, therefore, D of this comprises D of U plus D of these quantities, kinetic energy plus potential. Now, for a closed system, when it is an equilibrium state, it is at rest, there is no motion within it and the properties are uniform throughout. So, therefore, the kinetic energy within the matter is 0. So, therefore, usually for a closed system at equilibrium states, because we are interested between the equilibrium states, okay. from one equilibrium state one to other equilibrium state. So, at any equilibrium state this kinetic energy has to be 0, but potential energy may not be 0, because any system, for example, in the gravitational field of the earth it has some potential energy, but the change of potential energy in all practical cases are very negligible, are very small compared to the change in its intermolecular energy. So, that we can neglect this change of potential energy. Because of the fact there is no kinetic energy, its change is also 0. So, that finally, for a closed system at equilibrium states, we can write the change of its internal energy is the change of its intermolecular energy U only. This is the usual sign convention, this is the usual nomenclature, U as the intermolecular energy and E as the internal energy. So, therefore, we will denote the internal energy for a closed system henceforth by the term U. U is actually the intermolecular energy. So, when we will refer the internal energy of a closed system, stationary closed system at equilibrium states, we will refer to U only. So, with this in mind, we can write then for a closed system Q12 is equal to U2 minus U1 plus W12. In differential form, delta Q is du plus delta W. So, now you see that these are the first law when no restrictions about the system was given. It is valid for a closed system, whatever may be its internal energy. But when you write in this fashion, we consider the internal energy is composed of only intermolecular energy. That means closed system will be at rest, there will be no kinetic energy, and moreover the changes in the potential energy during a process has to be small as compared to the changes in its intermolecular energy. So, that we can write this form of the first law for a closed system. Now, if we go little ahead, now we see put little more constraint. Now, if we consider a closed system which perform only reversible displacement work, which we discussed earlier, that may quasi-static displacement work, which is nothing but PDV work, we have recognized this earlier. So, any form of reversible or quasi-static displacement work, that is the work interaction between the closed system and the surrounding, because of the displacement of its system boundary, that is the reversible or quasi-static displacement work is given by the expression PDV. Infinite small amount of work is given by PDV, that means delta W equals. That is why this work will be referred henceforth as PDV work. So, if we consider the closed system only performs this type of work, that is PDV work, then we can write for that occasion Q12 is U2 minus U1 plus integration of PDV between the state 1, 2, or delta Q is equal to du plus PDV. Now, we see that there are three different forms. Now, this is valid, there is no restriction imposed, even the restriction of closed and open systems are not imposed here. This is the general statement of the first law. Usually, we use this equation for closed system. When the restrictions of closed system at equilibrium state comes, with the further assumption that change in potential energies are negligible compared to the change in intermolecular energy, then this becomes these two, one is for a finite process, another is for an infinite small process in differential form for closed system at stationary equilibrium states. Then if we again further put another constraints that closed system only interacts with the surrounding in the form of PDV work, then the first law for a finite process becomes like that. Now, if we write this expression, sometimes it is written for a closed system conventionally per unit mass. That means, if you write for a finite process, let m is the mass of the closed system which remains fixed per unit mass, then this becomes the change in the specific internal energy, and this is expressed as small u. Script is same, but the size is small u, and this will be definitely P specific volume. This is denoted by small v. So, therefore, here also del q by del m, if del m is the mass of an infinite small system which receives infinite small amount of u del q. Here also it is the differential of small u, that means small u refers to specific internal energy per unit mass plus P into dV, specific volume. That means this is a point function in terms of specific values, this becomes an intensive property, this is also specific internal energy, and this is the heat addition per unit mass. After this, I will go to the definition of a new property, enthalpy. Enthalpy. Now, if you are asked at any time what is the definition of enthalpy, the very first line of this definition comes from the mathematical statement that enthalpy is a property which is defined as, H is the denoted, which is defined as summation of internal energy plus pressure and volume. This is the enthalpy. Very first line of its definition. There is no physical concept at the beginning. Let us start with this definition that enthalpy is a property of a system which equals to U, the internal energy. For a closed system, internal energy. For an open system also it is the same internal energy U plus the product of P into V. That is the definition of enthalpy. So, enthalpy is a property of a system. It refers to both closed and open system. It is such a property which is defined by this. Now, the question comes that if we define enthalpy, why such a particular combinations of internal energy U, pressure and volume has been defined as enthalpy. This will be made clear afterwards, and which will give the physical significance of enthalpy. So, at the present moment, first we start with this definition mathematically without understanding much, as if this particular combination is defined as a property which is known as enthalpy of a system, which refers to both closed and open system, because it is the definition of a property which does not depend upon the type of the system or the type of the process executed by a system. It is a property of the system. So, it is very important. Sometimes it is asked that whether enthalpy is defined for a closed system or open system. For any system, it is a property, just like internal energy, pressure, volume, temperature, like that enthalpy. Now, you see U is an extensive property, V is an extensive property. So, therefore, H is an extensive property. So, we can define the intensive property, corresponding intensive property, that is enthalpy per unit mass, which is specific enthalpy, as specific internal energy plus pressure into specific volume. So, this is the definition of specific enthalpy. Now, with this definition of enthalpy, let us now find out one small thing or small problem, to solve one small problem, that a closed system receives some heat from outside, and performing a process, receives some heat from outside, performing a process from state 1 to 2, and is doing PDV work at constant pressure, doing PDV work at constant pressure, understand? So, what is the amount of heat added? Let us find out this as a problem. Now, Q12 we can write as, what is this? U2 minus U1 plus integration of PDV. Now, earlier also we recognized that this integral cannot be found out or evaluated until and unless we know the process constraint, that what is the relationship between P in terms of V. Now, if we know that process constraint is such that pressure is constant, then we can write this U2 minus U1 plus a constant pressure, that is P times V2 minus V1. So, you can write this we can use P2 when we multiply with V2 and or P1 is multiplied with V1, since P2 is equal to P1, pressure remains constant. That means that constant pressure the displacement is taking place. That means heat is added in such a way that whenever it is displaced, it is at constant pressure. Then we get U2 plus P2 V2, U2 plus P2 V2 minus U1 plus P1 V1 is H2 minus H1. So, therefore, we see the heat added is given by the difference is enthalpy at the two states, enthalpy at state 2 minus enthalpy at state. This can be more easily found out from the differential form that delta q is equal to, those who are little smarter, then du plus p dv. Then he can use it like this, d of u plus pv. Why? Because p of dv is d of pv. Since p is constant, it can go within this differential operator. That means it is dh. So, from here one can conclude q12 is, that means if you integrate H2 minus H. Therefore, we see that the heat interactions between a system, closed system and the surrounding, when closed system performs displacement, that PdV work at constant pressure is given by the difference of enthalpy between the two states. That means, if it goes from state 1 to state 2, if the enthalpy at state 2 is more than the state 1, then heat is being added because Q is positive in that case. If the enthalpy of state 2 is less than the enthalpy of state 1, the heat is being rejected by the system, that is Q is negative. That means, the difference between the enthalpy at the two state points gives the heat interactions between the system and the surrounding, provided the system is a closed system and performs PdV work at constant pressure. How the PdV work at constant pressure is performed? When the displacement work is being obtained, that means the system boundary expands, the pressure will reduce. Then heat is added in such a way that the pressure remains constant. That means always expansion is taking place at constant pressure. Similarly, you can conceive physically that is a compression type of thing. That means if the system boundary collapses, then pressure should increase. So, that heat should be rejected in such a way that it counterbalances that increase in pressure. That means that compression takes place with constant pressure. Okay? Any question? Clear? Okay. Now, after this, any question please ask. You can ask questions in between. Do you have any question? Hello? Okay. Next is, we will define specific heats. Specific heats. We have already, we know there are two specific heats. Specific heats at constant volume and specific heats at constant pressure, which we have already read at school level. Specific heat at constant volume and specific heat at constant pressure. How do you define the specific heat? We define the specific heat in terms of the heat quantity, but specific heat is a property of a system. Specific heat at constant volume or constant pressure, these are the process constraints. We know the specific heat at constant volume is defined as the infinite small amount of heat added to a closed system at constant volume to raise its temperature by an infinite small amount delta T, then this ratio del Q by del T is the specific heat. Now, we will define this in terms of the system properties rather than the path functions Q and W. How do you do it? Let us start the definitions of specific heat. Let us consider the similar way that a system of small mass delta M receives an infinite small amount of heat delta Q, for which there is a rise in temperature delta T. Then, as you know, that definition of specific heat is delta Q per unit mass delta M divided by delta T, limit of this quantity as delta T approaches 0. Am I right? In the definition of specific heat at constant volume, please see and tell that it is the amount of heat transfer per unit mass per unit temperature difference as the delta T tends to 0. So, this is the basic definition of specific heat at constant volume, provided, no, I am not right, this is done at constant volume. Yes, V is equal to constant. That means heat has to be added at constant volume of the system. Now, if we look to the first law, what is first law here? Delta Q is du plus PdV. Well, now in defining the specific heat, one restriction is there. You always forget that there should not be any other work transfer except the displacement work of the piston, system. So, we will not allow any other work transfer without the displacement work. Understand? So, only displacement work, that is PdV work, will be allowed. Okay. Now, if we write delta Q by delta M, what is this? This is capital U, I have just told. This is small u, that is means specific internal energy, plus P into dV. Now, when we make this at constant volume, that means heat added per unit mass at volume constant, then we can write it as du V is equal to constant. This is 0. Well, so therefore, del q del m is du at constant volume. So, if you substitute this, we get limit du at constant volume, V is equal to constant divided by delta t as delta t tends to 0, which becomes is equal to del u del t. At constant volume, usually it is written like this in terms of the partial differential equation. U is a function of two variables. In case of single phase single component system, u may be expressed as a function of t and v, small u. So, therefore, we can write its partial differential. Therefore, you see that the specific heat at constant volumes becomes equal to partial differential of specific internal energy with temperature at constant volume. It's clear? Cv is del u del t at constant volume. Similar way, we can prove that Cp is del h del t at constant pressure. How? Let us define Cp small c Ep is equal to, as we know that process constant has to be changed only, that means it is the same thing at constant pressure. That means with the same nomenclature delta q by delta m. Delta q is the small amount of heat added to a system of mass delta m, where P is equal to constant, well, divided by delta T, and the limit of this quantity as delta T tends to 0. Now, we will have to look to the first law, delta Q is du. I have told only we will relax this work transfer, no other work transfer, only PdV work. If it has to be there at constant pressure, what it will be? Delta Q, first of all per unit mass you write, is equal to small u plus P dV. That means at constant pressure, just now we have recognized this thing. So, it is a repetition. At P is equal to constant, it is the change in enthalpy, and it will be change in specific enthalpy because we are representing Q per unit mass. And we write it as pressure is equal to constant. That means P, simply I am giving P is equal to, or you can write P is equal to constant. That means here these things will be limit of change in specific enthalpy at constant P, divided by delta T, and the limit when delta T tends to 0. So, this becomes del H del T, I am sorry, it will be big T, temperature at constant pressure. So, it will be del H del T at constant pressure. So, therefore, specific heat at constant volume is the partial differential of specific internal energy with respect to temperature at constant volume. Similarly, the specific heat at constant pressure of a system is the partial differential of enthalpy, specific enthalpy, that is specific enthalpy with temperature at constant pressure. So, this is now clear. With this, I will close this lecture regarding first law applied to a closed system. Now, I will come to the first law to this section, first law applied to an open system or control volume, open system or control volume, open system or control volume, open system or control volume. Now, you may ask me, sir, first law why it is not applicable? Yes, first law is the same, but how the different version, just a different version, when you use a control volume, the version changes little bit because of the fact that control volume and closed system, that is open system and closed system, control volume system and control mass system. Usually when we tell system, it means I have told earlier that is a control mass system. We usually do not use this word control mass. System means control mass system. On the other hand, control volume means again control volume system or open system. So, the basic definitions of basic requirements of control volume system or control volume and open systems and closed systems are different. What is a control volume system? Let us recapitulate. It is a fixed region in the space upon which the concentration is put, and there is a continuous flow of matter into the control volume and continuous flow of matter coming out of the control volume. And during this, what happens? The properties of the matter which coming in and going out changes, and the control volume interacts with the surrounding in terms of work and heat. For an example, we have appreciated a compressor is a control volume, just an example, where continuously air comes at certain properties and goes out at certain properties. Whereas it interacts with the surrounding in terms of taking work is being added to the compressor, so that a desired change in the properties of the air flowing through it is made. Similar is the turbine, continuously some gas or air is coming into it and it is going out, and this unit as a control volume delivers work to the surrounding. Heat exchanger, continuously a fluid is coming in and going out and heat is being added from the surrounding to this control volume. So, these are the examples of control volume. Let us now we will discuss how the first law of thermodynamics, that is basically the conservation of energy principle, is written for this type of control volume. Now, let us do this. Let us appreciate let us define a control volume like this. We are not much interested what happens exactly within that. We are only recognizing this as control volume. Well, control volume. Now, let us identify a section where the fluid or the material comes in, which is usually fluid, and another section where from the material, which is usually fluid in practice, goes out, which is usually a fluid goes out. There may be multiple such inflow streams, there may be multiple such outflow streams, but it does not matter much and the analysis will remain same, but for our simplicity we consider only one inflow stream and one outlet stream. Let us define a section here just near to the control volume 1 1, and let us define a section here just at the outlet of the control volume 2 2. Well, now this is the control volume, this is the situation. Now, how do you make this analysis of the control volume? And let us now consider as if the control volume is receiving some heat. Always we make analysis with the positive quantity of the energy interactions. Now, since control volume operates on the principle that always there is a continuous inflow and there is a continuous outflow, this is the definition of control volume. We always prescribe the energy interaction quantities with respect to time, on the time basis, because it is a continuous flow process. Understand, the continuous flow comes in and flow goes out, that is the control volume concept. It may be steady, it may be unsteady, but it is a continuous flow process. So, therefore, because of this continuous process with time, things are expressed in terms of time rate. So, del Q del T, let us consider the rate at which heat is added to the control volume. At the same time, we consider as if the control volume is delivering work to the surrounding by this amount del W del T, which may be coming in terms of the shaft work. Usually a control volume compressor turbine which I discussed, there is a shaft mounted on it, it rotates against a resisting torque and gives the work done. But we are not much interested in that mechanism by which work is transferred. In thermodynamics, let us consider some work is continuously being transferred to the surrounding at the rate of del W del T, while the control volume receives heat by the amount del Q del T. Now, first I write the conservation of mass for the control volume, conservation of mass, which is very simple. We have done it fluid mechanics class. Let us denote the mass flow rate, because it is rate is very important, dm1 dt at the inlet, and let us write dm2 dt is the mass out, rate of mass out at the inlet. and at any instant let us define mCv is the mass of the control volume. So, conservation of mass is very simple from common sense, that is the mass rate flow coming in, inflow rate of mass minus mass flow rate efflux dm2 dt, that means rate of change of mass, that means mass flow rate, that is the mass flow rate coming into the control volume minus the mass flow rate going out of the control volume is equal to dm, that is the rate of change of mass within the control. This is simple conservation of mass, which was exploited in fluid mechanics to derive the equation in terms of the velocity components, which we are not doing here, that is known as popular continuity equation. So, basically conservation of mass tells like that the rate of mass inflow minus rate of mass outflow is the rate of increase of control volume mass mCv dt. Now, what about energy? That is the first law, conservation of energy. Conservation of energy also will come from the same common sense, that if we denote ECV as the internal energy of the control volume at any instant, the rate of change of this internal energy within the control volume will be the difference between the rate at which energy comes into the control volume minus the rate at which energy goes out of the control volume. But here we will have to recognize one thing, as unlike the closed system, that in closed system energy comes in and goes out only in the form of the work and heat, because no matter, no material, no mass of the system goes out or comes in. But here, since the masses are coming in and going out, so the energy quantities associated with this mass also comes within the control volume and going out of the control volume. So, we will have to recognize these two forms of energy which are coming into the control volume. For example, here along with this mass the energy is coming into the control volume, apart from that heat coming into the control volume. Similarly, work is going out of the control volume, and at the same time the energy associated with this stream of mass going out of the control volume causes an energy going out of the control volume. So, to recognize that, one has to know what is the energy. So, now to know what is the energy coming into the control volume associated with this stream of mass, or what is the energy going out of the control volume associated with this stream of mass, one has to know first what are the different forms of energy which are being associated with a stream of mass as a stored energy within that stream. If we defined E, then we have to know that. That means, what is the stored energy? What is the stored energy in a stream of fluid, or mass in a stream of fluid? So, therefore, we have to know this thing. If we know that, then we can find out what is the energy that is coming into the control volume per unit time. So, we will have to know then what is the different form of stored, or what is the total stored energy in a stream of fluid. Now, with a stream of fluid, what are the forms of energy that it can have stored in it as an internal energy of the stream of fluid? If we tell that internal energy of a stream of fluid, what are those? Can you tell one by one? Kinetic energy first, kinetic energy, then potential energy, next intermolecular energy, very good, because of its temperature, intermolecular energy, next kinetic energy because of the velocity, potential energy because of its position in a conservative force field, intermolecular energy because of its temperature, absolute, above absolute 0 always have an internal energy, intermolecular energy. Then next another one is missing, that is the pressure energy or flow work, which we discussed in detail at the beginning of this class, that pressure energy PV or the flow work. So, a stream of fluid can be designated by all these sorts of energy at any section. That means, when a fluid flows in a stream, a section of this fluid possesses all this energy if you describe it per unit mass. So, therefore, denoting that stored energy per unit mass as E, we can write U, therefore, E therefore becomes equal to, in general, U, first I write U, that is per unit mass, that is specific internal energy, plus the flow work I should write afterwards, that is the pressure energy P by rho. In fluid mechanics we deal it at P by rho, plus the kinetic energy as you told V square by 2, plus potential energy. Here we consider only the Earth's gravitational field as the body force field. There is no extra body force field imposed on the fluid, so that we del E dash Gz. That means this total sum of these 4 quantities represents the energy stored per unit mass in a stream of fluid and designate it as E. Now, therefore, if we designate it here as E1 and designate this as section to E2, then we can write the energy coming in with this stream is dm1 dt into E1. Similarly, energy going out with this stream is dm2 dt E2. Here one assumption is made. What is that? That the properties, that means all these properties, not only these properties, all properties of stream, inlet and outlet stream remains invariant with time. They do not change with time. That means the properties of the fluid stream entering into the control volume or going out of the control volume is invariant with time. There is a change of these properties while flowing through the control volume, but at this section all the properties are invariant. So that we can write the energy quantities entering into the control volume per unit rate is the mass flow rate into energy per unit mass flow rate into energy per unit mass. Now, we can write the conservation of energy like this, that the total energy coming into the control volume, then what it will be? It will be dm1 dt into E1 plus in the form of heat it is coming del q del T, all right, minus the energy going out with the flow of mass outlet stream into E2 minus del W del T is equal to, there is no other statement, it has to be like that. That means energy quantity coming into the control volume minus energy quantity going out of the control volume is the rate of change of internal energy of the control volume. So, this is precisely the conservation of energy statement of the control volume. Now, if we write this in terms of, if we split this in terms of this, then we get here itself we can write dm1 dt, you can see this one, no? U1 plus P1 V1 plus V1 square by 2 plus Gz1 plus del Q del T, well, minus dm2 dt. So, we just splitting these U1 E2 terms, U2 plus P2 V2, I am sorry, it will be small v because it is per unit, plus V2 square by 2 plus Gz2 is equal to dE CV dt. So, the energy coming in minus energy going out is the rate of change of energy within the control volume. So, this is the energy coming in with the inflow of the stream. This is what? Specific internal energy, internal energy per unit mass. This is the flow work or pressure energy per unit mass. This is the specific volume. This is the kinetic energy per unit mass. This is the potential energy per unit. This is total is the stored energy per unit mass with this flowing stream times the mass flow rate. It is the energy flow rate or energy flow rate coming into the control volume plus the rate of heat coming into the control volume, which we define for the problem, minus this is the similar way rate of energy coming out of the control volume, minus I have forgotten to write it here, minus the rate of work coming out of the control volume, which we first defined for the problem, must be equal to the rate of change of internal energy of the control volume. And this is precisely the first law of thermodynamics to a control volume. It is very, very important. This is first law of thermodynamics to a control volume. Here what we have assumed? We have assumed that the properties at the inlet stream and the outlet streams are invariant with time. There may be multiple of inlet streams which will come here, which will go on adding all the energy quantities, and there may be a multiple of outlet streams which will go on adding at the outlet stream. So, only simplification is that in this analysis of thermodynamics, that this is invariant with time and this is uniform across a cross section. Do not ask me that question, sir, there is a variation of velocity v, there has to be a average velocity, obvious, but here we always assume that all properties, not only this velocity v, specific volume, internal energy, all these things are uniform across a cross section and invariant with time. Then it becomes as simple as this. This is only the accountability of energy for the control volume. All right. Now, at steady state what happens? At steady state, what is the definition of steady state? Now, when a control volume will be at steady state, all its properties will remain invariant with time. That means, both the mass and the energy being two of its important properties will remain invariant with time, which means at steady state a control volume is specified by this equation, that the rate of change of mass dmCb dt is 0 with time. Similarly, rate of change of energy with time is 0. That means they will be invariant with time. That means the conservation of mass will tell that this will be 0. That means dm1 dt is equal to dm2 dt. That means the mass inflow is equal to mass outflow. Similarly, dECb dt will be 0. Okay. Now, if we make this first condition, then we get dm1 dt is equal to dm2 dt, because the mass inflow is equal to mass outflow. There will be no mass change in the control volume. Let this becomes is equal to dm dt. And if we substitute this in this energy equation, that means if we write dm1 dt and dm2 dt as dm dt, then we can write dm dt into this quantity u1 plus p1 v1 plus v1 square by 2 plus gz1, just simply a repetition, del q del t minus, well, again dm dt into u2 small u specific internal energy plus v2 square by 2 plus gz2 minus del w del is equal to 0, because there is ECB is 0, dECB dt is 0. All right. Now, this equation at steady state can be expressed in terms of the quantities per unit mass. Here all the quantities are energy per unit time, but we will now express energy per unit mass. To do that, we will have to divide all the terms by dm dt, so that we get u1 plus p1 v1 plus v1 square by 2 plus gz1. Then this quantity will appear as del q del m, whose meaning is that the heat transfer or heat added per unit mass, heat added per unit mass u2 plus p2 v2 plus v2 square by 2 plus gz2 minus del w del m is equal to 0. That means, we transfer this equation from the time rate basis to mass rate basis. That means, this quantity contains internal energy per unit mass, flow work per unit mass, kinetic energy per unit mass, potential energy per unit mass. This is the stored energy per unit mass with the inflow stream, that means at the inlet section. This is the heat added per unit mass. Similarly, these are the stored energy at unit mass at the outlet sections of the fluid stream, and this is the work done per unit mass. So, this can be written now in a fashion. Now, if I club u1 pu u plus pv by our definition h, then I can write now little this way, del q del m minus del w del m is equal to h1 plus v1 square by 2 plus gz1 h2, very good, h2 I am happy, very good, minus, very good, h1 plus v1 square by 2 plus gz1, this will be 2, very good. This is known as steady flow energy equation, any one of these, either this or this or this. This is the time rate basis, this is the per unit mass basis, and this is written in a different arrangement. So, any one of these three are known as steady flow energy equations, steady flow energy equation, steady flow energy equations. Well, that means in steady flow energy equations, we see that the heat added per unit mass minus the work done per unit mass is given by the difference of the stored energy per unit mass between the two systems. Now, you will find out the immense physical significance of the term enthalpy. In almost all the practical appliances in engineering use, the difference in kinetic energies and potential energies are negligible compared to the change in enthalpy. We are interested in these two quantities as engineers. Okay? So, therefore, we are interested in the changes, not in the absolute value, because engineer wants what is the work, what is the heat interactions, and they are always described by the first law in terms of the changes of the property, changes of enthalpy, changes of internal energy, even changes of kinetic energy, changes of potential energy. We are not bothered about the absolute potential energy. If you want to know what is the work done in replacing a system from one point to other point in a conservative force field, you are not bothered about the absolute potential energy at a particular point where from it was taken and the particular point where it has been kept, but you are only bothered about the change in the potential energy, so that they should be defined from a conventional and same reference data. So, therefore, it is the change. So, these changes are small. In certain cases, the changes in kinetic energy in case of nozzles and diffusers will come across afterwards. Changes in kinetic energy may be appreciable compared to the change in enthalpies, but changes in potential energies are always negligible, because change in potential energy means what? It is with respect to the gravitational force field. So, you have to make an appliance very tall, so that changes in potential energy becomes appreciable to that of its change in enthalpy. It is not so. So, therefore, if we consider those cases where changes in kinetic and potential energies are small with respect to change in enthalpy, then we can write this one, that del q del m minus del w del m is simply H2 minus H1. It is a very, very important implications. That means, for a control volume, the difference between the heat and work interaction comes out to be change in enthalpy at the outlet and inlet stream of fluid, provided its change of kinetic energy and change of potential energies are negligible. You understand? So, for a device which is only work interacting, type, for work interacting device, that means for which del q del m is 0, I can write this equation as del w del m is H1 minus H2. That means one dealing with a compressor. Okay, I have a compressor, there is an inlet stream air 1 and there is an outlet stream air. Well, 1 and 2, del w del m is H1 minus H2, this equation. Now, you see that in compressor this H2 is more than H1, it comes at a lower pressure and temperature, it goes out with a higher pressure and temperature. H2 is more than H1, this becomes negative, which means the compressor takes the work. Reverse is the case in turbine. Turbine work is coming out, H1 is more than H2. Similarly, if we consider a pipe, just I am giving some example, only heat interacting devices. If you write is this for only heat interacting devices, only heat interacting device. That means, if flow takes place like this and we give heat per unit mass. So, if one wants to know what is the heat added, if I know the enthalpy at these 2 points, I can write this steady flow energy equation making this term 0, that del q del m is simply. That means, if heat is added, H2 will be more than H1. heat is rejected, H2 will be less than H1. Sometimes in a control volume, there is no work heat interaction, there is a conversion from one form to other form. For example, a nozzle. What you will do here? A nozzle, adiabatic nozzle, so that there is adiabatic surface insulated. So, at stream 1 and stream 2, the stream 1 liquid or fluid comes with enthalpy H1 and a velocity V1, and here in fluid goes out enthalpy H2 and a velocity V2. And what happens is that V2 is greater than V1, whereas H2 is less than H1. That means at the expense of this enthalpy, that means internal energy plus pressure energy, we create the kinetic energy. That means kinetic energy is created out of this sum of the internal energy and the pressure energy. In that case, we can write the energy equation not by neglecting this V1 square by 2 term. That means we can neglect the change in the potential energy term. You understand? In that case, we can write that del Q del M minus del W del M is equal to H1 plus V1, H2 plus V2 square by 2 minus, you see your note also. Now, since this is adiabatic, no heat transfer taking place, no work is performed by the nozzle with this surrounding, this term will be 0. That means we can write that V2 square minus V1 square by 2 is H1. That means it is because of this enthalpy difference, the change in kinetic energy. Simple. Okay, so this way we can apply the steady flow energy equations in different control volume in practices. All right. Okay, then I think we will stop now, and any questions you ask in a little louder voice. Please. Please.
So you told for the compressor that both the pressure and the internal energy are increasing. As a result of this, the enthalpy is increasing as it goes out. Once in a compressor, the volume is also compressed. So the source of the product of P and B may remain unaltered or may decrease also.
Why are you unnecessarily making the thing complicated? You don't know anything what happened, but what you know, try to understand. Volume is changed, pressure is changed, everything is changed. But gross energy balance change, there will be an increase in enthalpy because of the work done. Okay. Now, how you get in increase in enthalpy? Which is because increase in enthalpy, now enthalpy composed of two parts, U plus PV. So, whether there is a change in U or not, I do not know so far. That will come from the property relations. If it is an air, so this is an ideal gas, internal energy is a function of temperature only. If temperature increases, internal energy will increase. So, if there is an increase in internal energy, we will find out there is an increase in temperature, there is an increase in internal energy. Similarly, there will be an increase in pressure energy also because of the product of P and V. Whether volume decreased and pressure increased, probably their product is increased, so that pressure energy will be increased. We are not knowing this thing conclusively, that what will be there with these two counteracting effects. So, volume is decreased, specific volume is decreased, at the same time pressure is increased, but the product will be increased. But at the present moment, we are not even going into that detail, because we do not know how much PV is increased, how much U is increased, whether there is a decrease in PV, increase in U. But we are not reading the air compression now. You understand? We are analyzing thermodynamically that there is an increase in enthalpy. So, we will find out whether this increase is because of increase in U or increase in PV, or how much for U or how much for PV, or a combination of increase, decrease, total increase, that we are not going through at the present moment. That will be found out if we know the property relations and how do they change. But only thing is that enthalpy is increased. Okay. Think it from thermodynamic point of view. Don't go into that detail, that will come afterward. But in fact, I tell you for your information, the pressure energy increased because increase in pressure is much more than the decrease in the specific volume. Okay. Any question? Any other question from this first law? So, first law for a closed system and first law for an open system or a control volume, that we have finished. Next class what I will do, I will solve some problems in this class. Here, I will solve some problems. So, you come prepared, you go through these lectures, that first law and second law, analysis to closed and open system, we will solve some complicated, some simple problems and some complicated problems also. Okay. Any other question? No more questions. Okay, thank you.